Hey, Kathy, thanks for joining. We got a couple people hopping on. All right, awesome. There is a huge delay, guys, so as soon as I see your name pop up, I will shout out to you. And as always, we're gonna just kind of take a minute here and let people make their way into the parlor before we get started. Which veggies are you eating? I need ideas for dinner. All right, who else do we have with us? So I thought I'd be a little more relaxed today and just kind of chill on the couch or the sofa, however you want to name it. My grandmother would call it the Davenport. And today's topic is something that I've talked about a lot in my career, not only because of my own personal experience, but also because along with food sensitivities, this was something that was at the forefront of my study when I first got started in this field. So I put a lot of time and energy into figuring out why my body was doing what it was doing and some of the other things that brought on other symptoms associated with adrenal fatigue. It's one of the most misdiagnosed, I don't want to say disorders, states of disorder, imbalance, especially in the medical field, simply because the range of symptoms is so broad that it gets lumped in with other disorders. And we'll talk about some of those today. All right, Kathy, I will be over after the show. That sounds delicious. I don't know if can you guys hear this? You hear this little thing over here? I have her distracted with frozen peanut butter in her Kong, and she's just enjoying her little treat. Perfect. I don't eat much, Kathy. So we'll give everybody a few more minutes to kind of pop in and get settled into the parlor while we before we get started on our discussion tonight. While we're waiting on folks to make their way in, I want to take a minute and thank our sponsor, Rusted Leaf Tea Company. You can find them on Facebook at Rusted Leaf Tea Company. They have such an amazing variety of teas. My absolute favorite is their jasmine tea, and they now have a phoenix tea, which has kind of got a little bit of spice in it. It's really delicious. So go over there, check them out. And they do have a list of their flavors there, so you guys can browse through, send them questions, and even make an order right there on their Facebook page. Also, don't forget to pop over to YouTube when you get a chance. We are archiving all of the tea time videos and putting additional video content up as soon as we're able to. So go ahead over there and take time to check all of that out. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, share, and make sure you hit the little bell so that you get notified. There we go. There's the word I'm looking for. Notified when we drop a new video. Dave, thanks for joining us. Shameless plug. So Dave from Russet Leaf Tea Company is actually here with us tonight. Thanks for joining. Dave, are there any new flavors that you guys have coming out or have come out with? All right, I see a couple of people coming on. For those of you joining us, thank you so much. As soon as I see your names pop up, I will do a shout out for you. And we're gonna get started here in just a minute or two. Jumping into our discussion on all things adrenal fatigue. Yeah, good stuff. Kathy, you have the tea ball with the little leaf on it, right? Those are cute. They're good. I like that you can put the tea ball in there and then you can like take the tea ball and use it to stir your tea. That's fun. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. We are jumping in today. So today's topic are the symptoms of adrenal fatigue and what causes them. So I'm gonna take just a minute and kind of talk about what the adrenal glands are and what their job is in a nutshell for the body. So the adrenal glands are two little glands that sit right above the kidneys, like almost on top of them, like a hat. And they are the captains of the ship. Their job is to produce every hormone in the body, either on their own or in conjunction with the rest of the endocrine system. So they're like the big boss for your thyroid, your pituitary gland, your thalamus, your liver, and your pancreas, all of the glands within the body. They are the ones that send out the order and tell the other organs what they need to do. So when they're working properly, everything is in balance, your sleep cycles are great, it's easy to concentrate, you know, everything's just in working order. When they get fatigued, we'll begin to start to see things kind of get off kilter. And the adrenals are designed to not only run the ship, but then also provide that extra burst of oomph when we need it. They are most notably known for producing the hormone adrenaline, which is what we use when we get into that fight or flight range in our body. So when we're under stress and the body needs to go into survival mode and get ready to either defend ourselves or get the flock out, the adrenals kick that in. That takes a lot of work and energy from the adrenals, and so when we have to do that, they actually have to like step back and rest a bit. However, being the captains of the ship, that's not ideal. So we have a built-in backup mechanism, and that is our thyroid. If the adrenals are the captain, the thyroid is the first mate. And so when the adrenals have had to do their work for fight or flight, they take a rest, the thyroid picks up the slack to send the messages and do the work that needs to be done to keep everything running properly. The adrenals rest, they recover, they come back online, the thyroid gets to relax and go back to its own normal activity. When we're in fight or flight, and any kind of stress in life creates this fight or flight symptom for us, okay? Sitting in traffic, getting really stressed out and experiencing road rage, whatever that looks like for you. For me, it's more like road sarcasm, but it's something that stresses us out. That actually activates the adrenals to start to work and create that same environment internally that we would way back in history when we were nomads and hunters and gatherers and running for our lives from the saber-toothed tigers or the dire wolves or whatever other animal could eat us, or other tribes. So that we have so much stress in our lives these days that we're almost consistently in that fight or flight syndrome. There's so many things in life that create that trigger for the adrenals to start producing adrenaline and start working as if we need to save our lives. So when this happens chronically, the adrenals become overworked and fatigued. What we'll see at the beginning stages of this is that almost always the symptoms that are connected to this get attributed to an overactive thyroid. So let me explain how this is connected. Remember, the thyroid picks up the slack when the adrenals need to rest and recover. So the adrenals are fatigued, they need to rest and recover, the thyroid picks up the slack. This is not meant to be a long-term or chronic thing. However, when it is, we'll first see the thyroid picking up the slack and working overtime. So we get an overactive thyroid. And eventually, because the thyroid isn't meant to do this long-term, the thyroid will also get overworked and fatigued and begin to underfunction. So let's pop into some of the symptoms of adrenal fatigue and what's actually behind this. Because the adrenals being fatigued is kind of like the broad explanation of it. I want to give you guys a little bit more in-depth on what's creating each of these. So I'm going to go over about 6 symptoms that we see very regularly with adrenal fatigue, and talk about what's causing that. Where's that coming from? So the first one is poor concentration. The poor concentration really comes from the fact that we're just exhausted on multiple levels. And when the adrenals are fatigued especially, then we're not getting all of the tools and the components that we need to really run at our best, which means that things like higher brain function and the ability to complete complex tasks goes by the wayside. The body goes into a kind of survival mode where it's like, listen, we don't have the energy or the resources to be doing any of this heavy duty stuff. And so we're not. We're just like, all we got is survival mode, and that's it. That's all you're gonna get. We just don't have it to work on anything that requires any kind of really in-depth, higher brain function, coordination of any kind. And that can become very frustrating when you're trying to get stuff done at work, or when you're trying to complete a project, or you're in school trying to work on that. I think that we need to look at the possibility of some of these behavioral disorders being connected or coming from adrenal fatigue on some level. Things like attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. If we go back and we really examine what's going on and take a look, I think that we're going to find some level of adrenal fatigue. And the more intense those symptoms are, I think we're going to see a correlation between the adrenal function and the intensity of the symptoms. And yes, there's probably other things going to be involved. In reality, it's never just one thing. Our body's a very complex machine that has so many components that work together synergistically that there's never just one underlying cause. But if we can pinpoint something that has not been addressed and not been considered and not supported for recovery, along with the other things, I think we're going to see a much more beneficial, consistent recovery for folks who are struggling with this. All right, so trouble sleeping. People with adrenal fatigue, are you gonna come snuggle? I think we might get the babes. Did you take her toy? He took her toy. You are a little thief. All right. It's a live show, guys. The dogs get involved. Yeah, so trouble sleeping. Because the adrenals are responsible for producing every hormone in the body, anytime they get out of balance, then we're going to see other systems in the body begin to not function properly. This is going to include our sleep cycles, metabolism, our reproductive cycles, our sex drive, all the way down to the hormones that are responsible for things like keeping our blood flowing in the right direction when we change position, and making sure that sphincter muscles, like those in the bronchioles of the lungs, are working properly. So with regards to sleep trouble, when the adrenals are not working properly, our cortisol levels change, you got it? Okay. And our circadian rhythms can become out of balance or out of sync. And this will create issues where people may have insomnia, they may have hypersomnia, they may find that, they could sleep for 14 hours and wake up still feeling exhausted because they're not really getting quality sleep. So not only does it affect your ability to get to sleep, it affects your ability to stay asleep and the quality of sleep that you're getting. I want you guys to notice for a minute how many times this week that you dream when you sleep. You may not remember the dreams themselves, but most of us remember that we did dream. And I want you to pay attention to that. If you're finding that you are dreaming less than 4 times a week, your sleep quality has been disturbed. You're not getting into the deep REM sleep that we need to really allow ourselves to heal, recharge, and keep ourselves balanced. Not only that, but it means that you're not getting quality sleep where you're going to find yourself waking up rested at all. In most cases, we'll see people go the other direction where they're like, I slept for 10 hours and I don't feel like I slept at all. So pay attention to that. Getting down into that deep REM sleep, that's where we get the most rest and regeneration or rejuvenation. We recharge the best That's also the place where our body does cleansing and healing, is at night as we're sleeping and we get down into that deep REM sleep. And then if you can, notice when you're getting into that sleep. So for some people, they fall asleep, and typically when everything is in balance, we'll see ourselves getting into that probably right around 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. Again, this depends on your sleep schedule. If you work nights, then clearly this is not going to be the time frame for you. But right around that time frame, and then slowly, gradually waking up a few hours later, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. For people who are struggling with fatigued adrenal glands and experiencing sleep disturbances, you may find that you don't reach that until like right before your alarm goes off. You're still dreaming and your alarm goes off. Now, this doesn't mean that to be healthy, you should not be dreaming when your alarm goes off in the morning, because sometimes we do. But most of the time, that deep, heavy, restful sleep happens in the middle of the night. So keep that in mind. All right. So talked about the hormones that regulate our blood flow when we change positions. And something that we will see that's now being classified as orthostatic hypotension, or POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, has everything to do with this particular function. Inside the cardiovascular system, there are little valves inside of our arteries and veins that keep the blood from flowing backwards. They snap shut, they make a seal so that there's a dam there and the blood can't flow backwards when we change positions, going from a low center of gravity to a higher center of gravity, such as when you stand up, or when you are going from a lying down position to standing up, or squatting to standing up, or sitting to standing up. And some people even experience this just when they roll over. What you will find is that the hormone isn't being produced adequately or at all, and it's causing that flap to flutter when you change position, allowing the blood to flow backwards for a time, and then the flap recovers and everything goes back to normal. When that flutters, there's a sudden drop in blood pressure as the blood flows backwards, and we start to feel dizzy. In the case with POTS, which includes tachycardia or a rapid heartbeat, this is a recovery from the change in blood pressure based on the blood flowing backwards. So as this happens, as the blood starts to flow backwards, the body goes, holy crap, what's going on here? Nope, we got to get it going, and it starts to pump harder. That pump is the heart. So the heart will begin to beat more rapidly. We may find that we're getting a little short of breath, even with minimal exercise or exertion. And all of that is to recover from this moment of low blood pressure due to those valves fluttering just enough so that the balance is not maintained within the cardiovascular system, and the blood takes a detour for a minute. All right, so I want to talk about the last one, which we don't typically associate with anything physical, or it just gets completely overlooked. And that is that the adrenal glands are incredibly susceptible to emotional stresses. I know that I've said this a number of times before. It bears repeating. We remember stuff from repetition. So I want to remind you that mental and emotional stresses are far more energetically and resource expensive than physical ones are. We've all experienced this. Everyone can think of a day when they have just really busted their hump and put out a lot of physical energy, and the kind of exhaustion or the level of exhaustion that they felt at the end of that day versus a day that was just over the top, emotionally taxing, and the type of exhaustion that they felt at the end of that. It's two different kinds of exhaustion, and the emotional version of that kind of stress is really hard on the body. We use a lot of we use a lot of energy and resources to deal with that. And what happens when the adrenals get fatigued then is that these emotional stresses, these emotional and mental stresses, become overwhelming. We do not have the resources available because they're not being produced, or we're simply not able to maintain them in the body to handle even the smallest stressor. And emotional stressors in particular will knock people just for an absolute loop. I remember when I was recovering, just beginning to recover from adrenal shutdown, any kind of emotional stress for me, whether it was something going on with my kids or, something that was emotionally hard for me, would wipe me out. I would develop a migraine, I would have no energy, I would just be almost completely lethargic. So this brings us to things like depression and anxiety. Because everything seems overwhelming, it seems impossible to deal with. And without addressing not only the physical stresses on the body and the adrenal glands in particular to help support this particular process, we also need to address the emotional side of that. Because since the emotional stuff is so energetically expensive for us, and long-term emotional stress puts more stress and more work on the adrenal glands, dealing with those things that are maybe being suppressed or just have not had the opportunity to be brought into the light and healed, we're going to see it more difficult for the other things, the other physical symptoms, to be turned around because the emotional part of it is not being addressed, and that's really what's taking all of the gas out of the tank, if you will. All right, so I've made it through my list of stuff today. We are about a half an hour in, so I'm a little bit ahead of stuff. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor for questions. Anything on tonight's topic, anything on naturopathic medicine, midwifery, really anything along those lines. Go ahead, throw your questions out there. While you guys are getting those up on the screen for me, I'm gonna just go back for those who joined us a little bit later and give you reminders about the other online features that we do have. Our Teachable account is up and running, and we have, I think, 4 classes up right now. Nope, we have 3 classes. 3 classes up right now. And we will be doing our Nutrition 101 starting November 3rd or 5th, whatever that first Thursday is, which is the class that I've done live for a long time. So I've got tons of video footage that we're going to supplement in there, some cooking demos and things like that from past classes and events. Also, YouTube. everybody go over to YouTube. We are archiving all of our tea time videos. I'm also trying to get more instructional videos up for you guys. I'm going to be honest, I'm struggling with content. I would love to hear what you guys really want to hear about. What are questions that you have about naturopathic medicine? What are questions that you have about specific conditions? You know, the sky's the limit here. So what do you want to know about? Please give me some feedback. I will do my very best to get those done and posted for you guys. I do have a list of stuff I'm working through right now. I'm running to the end of that list. So head over to YouTube. It is Dr. Dani Naturopath over on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Click the little bell so that you get notified every time we drop a new video. And I'm gonna open up the floor. Sarah, thanks for joining. Okay, so I'm gonna try and open up your comment here, Sarah. There we go. All right. Oh, Sarah. So Sarah wants to know if essential oils, particularly eucalyptus and lavender, are good ways to bring cortisol levels down. You know, yes, they can help with that. However, I want to just point out that essential oils are a tool that we use to help manage symptoms in conjunction with other things like diet, emotional therapies, acupressure, reflexology, energy work, stuff like that, to get to the root of the problem. If your cortisol levels are up because you are under a lot of stress, you're stressing out your adrenals, and so we need to find all of the causes. There's never just one thing, and make sure that we are addressing that for you as an individual. What's the whole picture for you? What needs support for you? And making sure that we are including that. I think eucalyptus and lavender are fantastic. I will say this, disclaimer, I don't care what any of the marketing says for essential oils, particularly some of the big companies. Do not ingest essential oils. They are not intended for internal use. They are highly volatile, and we have to put them in carrier oils to apply them to our outer skin, which is like extremely tough and you know, designed to protect us from the elements. Imagine what those do to the soft internal tissues of the body. So I hope that, did that answer your question, Sarah? Thank you for that question also. Okay, diffusing is great. You can also put it in like coconut oil or olive oil or really any kind of light oil, and apply it to the skin, especially on the reflex points on the hands and feet, as we would use in reflexology. Good stuff. Thank you. I think we've had somebody else pop on. I love everybody coming in to the show. I appreciate all of your support and feedback. When I started this, I really thought I was going to do like a week and be like, well, that didn't work. And there's been a tremendous amount of support and turnout for this. I really love it. And I know that we've had a couple of people pop on like in the last minute or two. So I apologize that you guys are coming in right as we are getting into the Q&A session. But I will be posting a replay of this online on Facebook. We'll post a replay right after the live session, and we'll be archiving it over on YouTube. So make sure you guys check that out. Also, if you go to YouTube, make sure that you are leaving comments and sharing the videos. That really helps us out there. Kathy wants to know, what diet changes would you suggest for the support of adrenals? Thank you, Kathy. That's a great question. So the first thing I would do is I would say we really need to take a look at what kind of processed, chemicalized foods are you consuming, and then replace those with whole, fresh foods. The big ticket item is refined sugars and caffeine. Caffeine in particular stimulates the adrenal glands, and puts them under the same kind of stress that fighting for our life would. So by consuming caffeine drinks, and that's going to be, you know, your energy drinks, coffees, fizzy drinks, you know, pop sodas, stuff like that contain caffeine, and also black tea, white tea, green tea, all of those contain caffeine, and they stimulate the adrenals to the point that the body feels like it is in fight or flight mode and then becomes fatigued. In addition to that, caffeine drinks will dehydrate you, strip you of vitamin B, zinc, magnesium, sodium, most of your electrolytes, all of which are necessary to help you deal with stress. So caffeine, number one, sugar, refined sugars, okay? I'm not talking about fresh fruits. Those are fine. But refined sugars, baked goods, candies, stuff like that. And I'm going to tell you right now, like, I struggle with the candy. Chocolate is, like, I love my chocolate. I really struggle with giving that up. I've gotten so much better over the last 10 years. But that, I mean, that is my nemesis. It's, if I have a little bit, I'm craving it all the time. It really, you know, it's tough. And I know a lot of people out there like that. I joke that, you know, it's easier to get people off of heroin than it is off of sugar, but that's really not that far from the truth. Like, sugar is really hard to get people off of. So refined sugars, you want to make sure that you are going for as much raw, fresh fruits and vegetables as you possibly can. Like, the more natural the food that you're consuming, and I'm not talking about products that say they're all natural, I mean, like, as close to off of the plant or animal as you can possibly get, and you can identify which plant or animal it came off of. You want to consume that as much as possible. I tell people, you know, I have an 80-20 rule because food is social. So if 80% of the time we're consuming what we need in the right proportions and the right combinations, then we can handle the 20% of the junk that we throw at it. In addition to that, you want to make sure that you are getting at least 60% of your total diet from fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, beans, legumes, mushrooms, plant-based food. And then no more than 10% of your total diet from animal products, meat, fish, dairy, and eggs. And then less than 10% of your diet from grains. And yes, I do know that that is completely opposite of what the food pyramid says. However, if you want to get more into that in the nutrition class, I'm going to actually go over where the food pyramid came from and why it's so out of balance and why it's contributing to obesity and illness in our country. That's on Teachable, so you can check that out. Also, I'll be doing a small series of like teaser videos with little snippets of information from that class on YouTube. So you can get the free stuff on YouTube and then get the in-depth stuff at the class. All right, Kathy, you are welcome. Thank you for that question. We are taking Q&A. I saw looked like a couple of people popped on. So we are in the Q&A session. We talked about symptoms of adrenal fatigue today and what causes those symptoms. Any questions that you have on that topic, as well as any questions pertaining to naturopathic medicine, midwifery, and any of those things. How do I feel about walking outside in the sun barefoot? That seems to recharge and go for relieving stress. Okay, I love that, Kathy. Thank you. So I'm a South Florida girl, and before I moved to Ohio, I'm going to quantify that. South Florida is home to me. However, I've lived in Ohio now longer than I've lived anywhere else. So I'm not really sure I can claim being a Southern girl anymore, but that's another story. So being in Florida though, you know, growing up there, I would not wear shoes if I could get away with it. Like, as soon as I could get my shoes off, I would. And we were outside a lot. So I think it's really important that we are outside in nature, because the connection with nature and just our bodies being out in that in general is incredibly recharging. It helps us to actually reconnect on an emotional and energetic level, as well as getting us out in the sunshine so that we can use that photosynthesis that's inherent in our bodies to produce vitamin K and some of the other vitamins that we synthesize in our body that are reliant upon us actually getting a little sunshine. And then also, it's very grounding to get your feet on the earth. And I think that for a lot of people, that is incredibly helpful in allowing them to decompress and recharge and just recenter. So that's a great comment, Kathy. Thank you so much. You're okay, Em. They're down the street. It's okay. Emmy is on high alert. Clearly, there have been entirely too many people walking in the world today. She has to let me know about all of them. All right, we are still taking questions tonight on the topic of adrenal fatigue and what causes their symptoms, as well as any questions that you guys have regarding naturopathic medicine or midwifery care. All right, my lovelies, we're a little bit early tonight. We're about 45 minutes in. If there are no other questions, I am going to go ahead and close it out tonight. I appreciate, as always, everyone coming out on a Thursday night and sitting with me in my living room, just kind of word vomiting into the camera. I appreciate all of your questions tonight. 2 weeks, we'll be back. I will post the topic as it is undecided at this moment. Again, if you guys have something you want me to talk about, or you have, a particular topic that you're interested in, put it in the comments or message me, and I will get it on the roster. So again, thanks for joining me tonight. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, Rusted Leaf Tea Company, over on their page, Rusted Leaf Tea Company, right here on Facebook. And join us next time, 2 weeks, right here in the parlor for tea time. This is not your tea, sir. Until then, remember to be kind to yourselves and be kind to each other. Have a great night.